Hello everyone, my name is Farah and I'll be teaching IB Biology for the 2025 Winter Intensive course. During this intensive session, our main goal is to strengthen your understanding of key biology concepts and make sure you feel confident going into the next semester. For Year 1 students, our focus will be on building a solid foundation. So in week 1, we'll start with chapter 1, molecules, covering the essential chemistry of life. And in week 2, we'll move on to chapter 2, cells, where we'll explore the structure and function of different types of cells. Then in week 3, we'll begin chapter 3, organisms, focusing on selected topics that introduce how different systems work together in living organisms. And for year 2 students, our approach will be a bit different. Since you're preparing for your final exams, our priority will be ensuring that we cover all the required concepts and practice exam style questions. Over the first 2 weeks, we'll work through chapter 3, organisms, and chapter 4, ecosystems, making sure we understand both the concepts and how they appear in IB style questions. And then in the final week, we'll focus on reviewing chapters 1 and 2 along with past paper questions to strengthen exam techniques and identify any weak spots before your final assessments. So now let me give you a sample lecture on the very first topic of IB Biology, A1.1 water. When studying science, we should be able to define the basic terms before we do anything more complicated. So a molecule is two or more atoms joined together by one or more covalent bonds. And a covalent bond is formed when two atoms share a pair of electrons. But then in some cases, the nucleus of one of the atoms is more attractive to the electrons than the other, so the electrons are not shared equally. The consequence of this is that the covalent bond is polar, with one of the atoms having a slight positive charge and the other a slight negative charge. Molecules with polar covalent bonds have polarity. And for example, water molecules are polar. A hydrogen nucleus is less attractive to electrons than an oxygen nucleus. So in a water molecule, the two hydrogen atoms have a slight positive charge, which is shown here in the diagram below. And the oxygen atom has a slight negative charge. And for the slight or partial charges, we use the Greek letter delta. So the oxygen atom in the middle here has delta minus because it attracts electrons more, and the hydrogen atoms on the sides have delta plus charges. And when we talk about bonds, there are two types, intramolecular and intermolecular. The prefix intra means within and inter means between. So the two bonds between oxygen and hydrogen atoms in a water molecule. So that would be these two bonds. So that's the bonds within a molecule. So those are intramolecular bonds. And an intermolecular bond can form between the positive pole of one water molecule, which is the hydrogen part, right? Because that's the delta positive, delta plus part of one water molecule, and the partial negative part of another water molecule, which is the oxygen part. So there will be a force of attraction, which is intermolecular bond. And then this type of bond between water molecules is called hydrogen bond. Right, so far we looked into the structure of water molecule and some chemical properties. Now, let's look at some physical properties of water. There are two concepts, cohesion and adhesion. Again, when learning new science jargons, we can look at the anatomy of the word. For cohesion, the prefix co means together. So cohesion refers to when water molecules stick to each other or cohere because of the hydrogen bonds between them. On the other hand, adhesion is water sticking to another substance that's hydrophilic. So that was a rough lecture about water. Let's solve a couple past paper questions together. The first one is from the 2022 November paper. Right here, we can see several water molecules, each made up of one oxygen atom and two hydrogen atoms. So that's one water molecule, and we see four of them. And the dashed lines between the water molecules represent hydrogen bonds, right? The dashed ones are hydrogen bonds. These are the weak attractions that occur between the slightly positive hydrogen of one molecule and the slightly negative oxygen of another molecule, right? So we did that hydrogen of the water molecule has delta positive pole, and the oxygen atom in a water molecule has a delta minus pole. And now the question asks which property of water is not illustrated. So let's go through the options one by one. Option A, cohesion. Cohesion means water molecule sticking to another water molecule. And we can see that happening here through hydrogen bonding. So we see the dashed lines, which are hydrogen bonds. So cohesion is shown. And option B, dipolarity. Water is a polar molecule. We know that, right? Because oxygen attracts the shared electron pair more into itself than the hydrogen nucleus. So oxygen is slightly negative and hydrogen is slightly positive. And that polarity allows hydrogen bonding to occur, right, between water molecules. So dipolarity is also illustrated indirectly in the diagram. And option C, hydrogen bonding. We can clearly see those dashed lines showing hydrogen bonds, so that's definitely illustrated. And option D, adhesion, we just did that. Adhesion is when water molecules stick to another substances, like the walls of a plant cell or a glass surface. And since this diagram only shows water molecules interacting with each other, adhesion is not illustrated. So the correct answer is D, adhesion. All right, and moving on. Let's look at one more question, number 6 from the 2022 May paper. What are linked by hydrogen bonds? So this is a really important concept when learning about molecular interactions, especially in water and in DNA. I know we didn't cover DNA in this video, but I assume everyone had covered this topic in semester 1 at school. So let's go through each option carefully. So option A says hydrogen and oxygen within a water molecule. We know that water molecule is composed of one oxygen atom and hydrogen atoms attached on the side. And it's referring to this bond right here, right? And inside a single water molecule, the bonds between hydrogen and oxygen are covalent bonds, not hydrogen bonds. So this one's incorrect. And before we do this, we can actually identify what hydrogen bonds are. Earlier in this video, we did that hydrogen bonds are intermolecular bond, which occurs between two separate molecules, right? Between neighboring molecules, not the bonds within a molecule. So as we identify where the bond is, it would be easier to get the correct answer option, right? And let's actually look at option D first because this is about water molecule as well. So D says hydrogen and oxygen in different water molecules. This one is correct because hydrogen bonds form between a slightly positive hydrogen atom of one water molecule. So let's draw. So this part is plus, right? And then the hydrogen bond would occur between the positively charged hydrogen and negatively charged oxygen part of the neighboring water molecule. So this is what we were looking for, the hydrogen bond, and this is happening between the neighboring molecules, which is an intermolecular bond, right? So this is the answer. We can actually look at option B and C as well. Option B says phosphate and sugar within a DNA molecule, right? So DNA is actually a macromolecule that's composed of a chain of nucleotides. And nucleotide has a structure like this. So the circle part is phosphate. And this is a pentagon sugar. And this is a nitrogenous base part. And then how it goes is basically it forms a chain of nucleotides like that. And because DNA is double-stranded, pentagon, and then like that. The hydrogen bond is formed between the strands, between the nitrogenous bases, right? And then B is referring to the bond between phosphate and sugar within a DNA molecule. So that would be this one right here, right? So that's covalent bond because that's within a DNA molecule, which is a intramolecular bond. And right, so B is incorrect. And C, base and sugar between DNA nucleotides. Base and sugar between DNA nucleotides. So that would be this one right here. Right. So this is another covalent bond, which means that's not a hydrogen bond. Right. So the answer is D, hydrogen and oxygen in different water molecules. Right, so that was it for today. I hope to see you all in my class this December. Bye.